Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta. From a pretty wet Delhi, we had some major showers yesterday.
It has already dried.
Today is already dry, yeah.
Okay, so on that cheerful note that I've attempted has been thwarted by the pessimists Raman and Manisha. But today we have on the panel, in the studio, the two pessimists, Manisha and Raman.
Hi.
Joining us from his hometown, Patna, is Anand Vardhan. Hi, Anand.
Hello.
You are in Patna, right?
Yes.
And joining us in our studio is Krishn Kaushik. Hi, Krishn.
Hi.
So, Krishn has been a journalist for a while, and many of you are probably already familiar with his work. He has reported on defense, strategy, politics, and media for the last 11 years. His last job before his current stint, which is as an investigative journalist, was with the Indian Express. And before that, he was with Caravan magazine. And now he's working on long-term investigative projects, which you shall know more about as you follow his work.
Sounds very fancy.
Yeah, doesn't it? So you were the Express for how long?
Almost 6 years.
6 years, right? And Caravan?
5 years.
5 years, right. Okay. So welcome. And you've just come back from Sri Lanka.
That's right.
How long were you there?
Short trip. I was just there for about 5 days.
Okay.
I reached there after the last major protest on July 9th. So I reached a few days after that. And I reached the day Gotabaya actually resigned as the president. He had already left the country and he resigned from Singapore.
He was in Singapore. In fact, Singapore said that he's not been given asylum. He's just got a visitor's visa or something.
Yeah,
right?
short-term visa for 14 days. He's trying to figure out where to go from there right now.
So we will get you, as promised, we promised you last hafta that we'll get you someone who was on the ground in Sri Lanka. And as promised, we have got Krishn, a very good journalist. But before we move on to the discussion, we have the headlines and a couple of announcements. One is from next week, our new podcast with Kunal Kamra and Sanjay Rajoura, Ye Bhi Theek Hai, will be going behind the paywall. It, in my view, is best consumed as an audio podcast. However, it is a video podcast because it was done in a partnership. One had the indulgence of spending on video. But the first 2 episodes are free for all. Now they'll be behind the paywall. So do download the News Laundry app. And as you know, we have tweaked it. We have got rid of many of the bugs. I hope it's working smoothly for all of you because it's working smoothly for me. And if you have any feedback, you can write in. We will tell you the email. In fact, the link is in the show notes below. But download the app so that you can consume that podcast seamlessly, effortlessly, without any glitches. And that can be done best through the News Laundry app. So if you're a subscriber, well, your money has gone into making the app, including those of the NL Sena contributors. So might as well download it and access the non-paywall content. Also, the Awful and Awesome is behind the paywall. So now both those podcasts are behind the paywall. And I hope you've been loving RSS 3 episodes. Coming up, Punjab 3 episodes. And after that, one on democracy 3 episodes. So we have a lot of very interesting podcasts coming up. Download the app, subscribe and pay to keep news free. Because not only do you get lots of great content, you also support journalism, which needs your support. Because as you've seen, advertising is killing it. And not in a good way. No, Manish.
You can't kill someone in a good way.
No, killing it is also a thing.
Killing it softly.
We're killing it.
Yeah.
No. Stand up,
business.
Oh, like
Yeah,
killing
yeah.
it.
killing it.
Oh, like.
So now you can give us the optimistic headlines
Yes.
as is your want.
Ranil Wickremesinghe has been sworn in as Sri Lanka's 8th president by the country's Chief Justice. The 73-year-old has been Prime Minister 6 times. He took the oath of office on Thursday morning, which is today. On Sunday, he had declared emergency after Gotabaya Rajpaksha fled the country for the Maldives and then to Singapore. Counting of votes to elect the 15th President of India began at 11 a.m. today. The results should be out while we're recording this podcast around 4 p.m. So we shall announce it during the course of this interview.
Right now it's 2:40 p.m. Thursday, 21st of
Then
July.
we'll probably be done by it. But anyway, if it happens during the course of our podcast, we'll announce it. Mohammad Zubair gets bail from the Supreme Court in all 6 FIRs filed against him in Uttar Pradesh. The judges also disbanded the special investigation team formed by the Uttar Pradesh government to investigate the FIRs against Zubair. There was also a plea that, tell him not to, the prosecutor said that, ask him not to tweet. And the judges rightly said that that's like asking a lawyer not to argue.
Hmm.
The Supreme Court is also hearing petitions relating to the rebellion in Shiv Sena. A bench led by CJI will hear the pleas by Eknath Shinde and Uddhav Thackeray faction. Abortion can't be denied solely because woman is unmarried. That's the Supreme Court allowing unmarried women to seek termination of pregnancy. 2 gangsters suspected to have been involved in singer Sidhu Moosewala's murder were killed in Amritsar on Wednesday during a gunfight with the Punjab police.
But they're not arrested.
No, they were gunned down. In fact, they showed the videos. These days, the bar of what is okay to show on television is going. So he was shot dead. I mean, he was dead.
GST rates have been increased from 5 to 18% on various goods and services, though GST will remain exempted from unpacked, unlabeled and unbranded goods. Sitaraman
But
defended...
it's increased from 5 to 18%
That
on
mean different
various
slab.
goods, but they've included things that weren't under GST earlier, like curd and milk and all that, right?
Yeah.
Paneer.
Yeah.
And I think Kerala Chief Minister has written to the Prime Minister to
yeah.
reduce.
Many
Though
items.
she said that state governments are part of the council, so they should have objected earlier.
Many items Prime Minister Modi had earlier mentioned will not be covered under the GST.
Correct.
Have now been covered under the GST now.
Gehu, shehu and stuff like that.
Even the hospital bed.
Yeah.
But that is still not under GST. Or
It is.
It is
Oh,
under
okay.
GST now. Yeah.
That is crazy, no? Hospital bed.
Hmm.
I mean, hotels I still get, but anyway, rupee fell below 80 against dollar, which is a lifetime low. Why do they call it a psychological mark? Like I was reading in the headlines everywhere, fell below the psychological 80 mark, 80 against dollar.
Because our
Like
psychology is
psychologically we
in
don't-
round figures.
It's reaching a threshold actually.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. The same thing with the Sensex and stuff. Now, once
Yeah.
it breaches, then the bears take over or the bulls take over. That okay, now if it breaches this, then the next stop is such and such.
Yeah.
Chhattisgarh court acquitted 121 Adivasis after 5 years in a Maoist case. The Adivasis were booked for allegedly assisting Maoists in Boor Kapal attack, which killed 25 CRPF personnel in 2017. We have a detailed report on this, which you can read.
Yeah, the link
and
below.
Pratik has done that report, and the court judgment is very clearly saying that the police could not find even an iota of evidence against them. And imagine 5 years, 121 persons
In jail.
belonging to one village. I mean, it's massive. I don't know if any action can be taken against these.
Police personnel.
I mean, someone should file for the Adivasis to compensate.
On Wednesday, a vehicle mowed down a police constable in the Anand district of Gujarat. This pertained to a mining case of sorts. He was basically stopping a truck which mowed him down. A similar case was reported from Haryana, where a DSP was killed. He was investigating illegal stone mining and was mowed down when he was asked a truck to stop. Another such case took place in Jharkhand. So you've had 3 deaths related to mining in 24 hours. Congress chief Sonia Gandhi on Thursday appeared before the ED for recording her statement in the National Herald case.
That is today,
Yeah.
Thursday, and
The
even as we're
protests all
recording this,
over.
there are protests all over the country. Protests like the Congress hasn't done in 15 or 20 years that I remember its existence. There have been many reasons, but the thing is that we'll discuss in some detail, but I thought that it would just be limited to Congress. Just before we started recording, Trinamool has kind of joined, TRS has kind of joined, so it's becoming more than the Congress now.
Also, I think they issued a statement in the morning in the parliament where multiple parties joined, saying that how the agencies are being used to
Investigating it, correct.
go after the opposition.
The Godavari floods ravaged Telangana last week. Waters are receding now, leaving a trail of destruction. Meanwhile, the Telangana Chief Minister, Chandrasekhar Rao, said that there's a foreign conspiracy behind the cloudburst incidents.
My God, chalo.
Foreign countries are deliberately planning cloudburst accidents, he said. Filmmaker Avinash Das was arrested by Ahmedabad police on Wednesday for allegedly insulting the tricolour and spreading fake news on social media.
So I don't know what are the specifics that they've got him on, but basically he shared a photograph of Amit Shah with that tainted IAS officer.
Yeah.
But the technicality they're getting him on is tricolor ko insult kar diya.
National emblems, insulting national emblems.
Nice.
And the photo is from 2017.
Gautam Adani has jumped to the 5th richest person in the world with a $125 billion net worth, more than Berkshire Hathaway CEO Warren Buffett.
And more than apna Bill Gates. And in fact, he's 4th, not 5th.
He's 4th.
4th
yeah.
largest. 4th richest.
And when you said Apna, I thought you would say Mukesh Ambani.
अरे वो अपने होते तो हमें सब्सक्राइबर्स को क्यों तकलीफ देनी पड़ती
He's the richest,
कि
right?
पैसे दो नहीं
Now
Adani's
Adani is the
overtaken
richest
him.
now. Adani supersedes.
But अगर अदानी सर अंबानी अपना होता तो would we have told the subscribers पैसे दो पैसे
तो हम जर्नलिज्म भी नहीं कर रहे होते.
जो भी कर रहे होते पैसे तो कमा रहे होते.
AAP has announced its entry into Gujarat elections. The first poll promises free electricity for domestic use.
That's 300 units. First 300 units free.
A deadly heat wave is spreading across Europe, breaking temperature records, fueling wildfires and disrupting transportation as the continent faces the impact of climate change. I think UK, London had like 40?
41.
41, yeah.
Highest
Crazy.
ever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you had a really funny scene at the GB News Network, very similar to Don't Look Up, where this climate change expert is trying to explain to the anchor why it's terrible. And she's like, but hasn't it always been this hard?
Yeah,
Well, that's an American accent, but yeah.
This is how it went.
Sorry, are we not being clear? We're trying to tell you that the entire planet is about to be destroyed.
Okay.
Well, it's, just something we do around here. We just keep the bad news light.
Oh, you see, John, you're outside enjoying the sunshine. It's not too hot, is it?
No, it's absolutely lovely. It's 20 degrees out here. It's perfect. But on a serious note, folks, by early next week, you can scrap 20 degrees. It could well be 40 degrees. I think there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of excess deaths early next week.
John.
The charts that I can see in front of me are frightening. So we all like nice weather, but this will not be nice weather. This will be potentially lethal weather for a couple of days. It'll be brief, but it'll be brutal.
Oh,
So,
John,
we can. Yeah.
So, John, I want us to be happy about the weather and every single. I don't know whether something's happened to meteorologists to make you all a little bit fatalistic and harbingers of doom. Because all of the broadcasts, particularly on the BBC, every time I've turned on anyone's talking about the weather, they're saying that there's going to be tons of fatalities. But haven't we always had hot weather, John? I mean, wasn't the summer of 76? That was as hot as this, wasn't it?
So in case you
Harbingers of
couldn't tell
doom.
which bit was the film and which was real life, the British accent was real life. But yeah, it was as bad and as ridiculous.
Former British Finance Minister Rishi Sunak on Tuesday tops the 5th round of voting to elect the next Conservative leader and Prime Minister of the country.
That too shall finish by the time this podcast probably goes up.
He's most likely to make it?
No, this
it's a
other
pretty,
lady is,
close
she's
contest.
overtaken him, no?
Liz Truss.
Liz Truss,
Liz
correct.
Truss.
So now it's only between both of them.
Yeah. But yeah, I think ghoom phirke it has to be white, yeah.
So the country, by all means, is still functioning. When I was going to my hotel, I saw cleaning staff at 11 in the night still cleaning the streets. People who could go to work are going to work even right now. The main problem is why people cannot go to work is fuel, the paucity of fuel. That's a major, major concern. But that does not mean that people are not working. Even the protesters, the Aragalaya, they are ensuring that the streets where they are kept absolutely clean. And plus in like central Colombo, where a lot of the tourists come, electricity is not really a problem at the moment. Fuel is still a major problem, so it's very tough to find cabs or autos, and the prices are, of course, jacked up. But that's the major concern. But of course, that's the experience of a person who's visiting there for like less than a week. A person who's living there. I spoke to people, and they said, because of paucity of fuel, they're moving towards bicycles, and a bicycle is going for like 50,000 Sri Lankan rupees, which is easily like 15,000 Indian rupees. A normal bicycle now.
Wow.
Because they are so much in demand. It was a conscious decision on part of the protesters, some of the organizations leading the protesters, that, they cannot let politicians delegitimize the protest, and making it violent would be the first step. Like there are various, I don't know whether these are conspiracy theories or whether there's any truth to them. Like one theory was the government is through their cronies is sending in laced liquor in the area around where the protesters are, so that they can get drunk quicker and then they can be delegitimized. So there are all these theories.
Okay.
So why it didn't turn violent? Because people have been extremely conscious that they cannot allow it to be branded that it's anarchy or it's just some.
So who are the leaders?
hooligans.
Who are people listening to? I mean, are they NGOs? Are they political leaders? Are they industrial leaders? Film
You
stars?
talk to people who have been part of the Aragalaya, they say, no, everybody is a leader.
What
But
does
then
Aragalaya mean?
Aragalaya means a struggle.
Okay.
So they are calling it the Aragalaya. It's the word that from the moment you land, you keep hearing every time. So it means a struggle. And if you talk to any person, like whether you go to the president's house, whether you go to the prime minister's house, whether you go to the presidential secretariat, you talk to people and they'll tell you, no, nobody's a leader. We are all leaders, cumulative decision making. But of course, that's not true.
There are many things that are going ki bhai China ki wajah se aisa hua hai. I'm sure that it has cost them, but not significant, because just 15% of the default, the loan, their debt is Chinese. And
Yeah.
even if you take that out, that won't. So their debt is mounted over years. One is because
Exactly.
tourism was a huge aspect. That went with the pandemic. Exports, tea, etc. That went with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And his tax cuts, apparently.
Exactly.
This just spiraled into rising debt. So it's not that Chinese fucked. In fact, Chinese have got fucked over because they're not getting nothing back.
Exactly. And that has what brought people to the streets when they cannot buy stuff that they need to sustain their daily lives. That's when it came to a head, when they just marched. So back in March, when they first protested, May, when they first protested, that was real anger on the ground, where they burnt down Ranil Wickremesinghe's private residence, attacked houses of 70 other MPs. That was real anger. Since then, after Mahinda stepped down, who was the most popular leader, even though Gotabaya was the president, Mahinda has been the most popular face in politics for the past 15, 17 years in Sri Lanka. Mahinda realized that it's time for him to step back. He stepped back. The Rajapaksas then brought in Ranil Wickremesinghe, who's, as Manisha already mentioned, is a 6-time prime minister. His party only had 1 seat in the parliament when he was brought in as the prime minister this time.
Imagine.
And that was not an elected seat, as well, nominated seat. So he became the prime minister by just having 1 seat in the parliament in a house of 224 or 225. That riled up people.
This movement is not going to give birth to like a new political party or...
No, that remains to be seen. I mean, this guy only has the president, this position for 2 years because he's serving for the remainder of the Gotabaya Rajapaksa term.
But there has to be re-election anyway.
Exactly. So in 2 years, I mean, if you talk to people, some people believe, whoever would have come to power right now is primed to fail because the economy is in such a bad condition. Nobody has a magic wand to really bring the country out of this immediately. So it may be a smart move on the part of the opposition to not put up its own candidate, become the president, possibly, and then fail, which may possibly lead again to the Rajapaksas coming back to power in 2 years down the line.
Now, another piece of statistics is that adding to that only, that 16 times since 1965, IMF has bailed out Sri Lanka. So there were many economists who very much prone to flaunting its human development index, but how it was achieved has not been given due consideration. Might be it has been given in academic circles, but sometimes the human development analysis ignores that. One of other major weaknesses I find is that particularly after 2009, after the end of civil war, Sri Lanka got very emboldened and started issuing the international sovereign bonds, which now accounts for at least 50% of its borrowing. Now on China, I would say that we discussed it now, that the quality of Chinese loans was more important than the quantity of it, because Chinese loans were not pouring into the local economy. So whatever the direction of the protest, it needs to find an anchor and a stability now. And the target they should be having is not a very radical change, because these kind of protests often raise expectations of overall and a lot of radical changes.
Yeah, we saw in the Arab Spring, right? Which where the Muslim Brotherhood and all.
They should go for piecemeal changes. It means it is not just a weakness of current protests. Even French Revolution lost its way because of its
radicals.
It was very radical in its expectations, and the conditions that followed was anarchic.
Will these protests like they are glossing over all these issues right now, but will they lead to strengthening of the population at the ground level, that they come together, all of them? I don't think that's going to happen. Those fissures will still remain.
And Godbaya had a very notorious record when it came to the
Human
media,
rights.
Especially human rights and the media. Especially during the war, there are allegations that he ran or he was heading these, death squads or these vans that would go around abducting journalists. White vans. So he denied everything.
He was the defense secretary at that point. Mahinda was the prime minister.
And he very clearly told journalists that if you write anything anti-national, quote unquote, then, I can't guarantee your safety.
I mean, there have been there have been claims that, he's called journalists directly and said, if you continue doing reporting on these things, you will be in trouble. And many journalists have had to flee the country in that period.
He sued a newspaper too.
So when actually there were many people left the country, he sued the Sunday Leader and he said, probably they deserve to close down.
Yeah.
They closed down.
If they can't pay,
they deserve to
they
close
can
down.
just shut down.
So many journalists had to flee when they were in power till 2015. Then, when Ranil came back to Ranil and Sirisena, who was the president at that point, when they were in power from 2015 to 2019, journalists thought it would be a better period. Possibly it slightly was, but when the Rajapaksas came back to power in 19, many journalists again left the country after that. So Rajapaksas have been one of the major threats to journalists in the country for sure.
I think protests like this are important even if they aren't achieving anything significant that is tangible. One is there was this mindset in the country that you cannot go against the government. You see, just think about it. And I often think about this. I think in about between 2005 or 6, when the first amendments to the RTI were proposed by the Manmohan Singh government, to 2011-12, when the Aam Aadmi Party was born, the whole RTI movement, which kind of evolved into, we must have gherao between the PM's house, between Sonia's house, around 8-10 times. We've gherao someone's house or the other. Today, can you imagine doing it? You'll be caught for sedition, for NASA, UAP.
Yes.
Plot to kill PM.
So regular people can't do that. Who can do that? Only politicians can do that. They cannot jail 2 million political workers, na? So it says, okay, so something like this, I think that is the psychological effect it has, ki jo hawa hota hai na, that you cannot open your mouth. That is why such protests are important, whether you agree with the party doing it or not, time and again in political environments. And I think that is the one advantage other than the many disadvantages for democratic discourse in general, which is required considering our television channels seem more upset than happy that Mohammad Zubair has got bail. I mean, imagine journalists are sitting on prime time, not exactly thrilled that he's walking. That is where we fucking are. So then, you have to clutch at straws, even if that means, applauding a Congress protest.
I know.
It's great that they're protesting, of course. I mean, they have the right. But again, they've chosen one of the worst causes. Because again, as you said, it's only when our top leadership is attacked, we'll come out in such numbers. These kind of protests, again, because they are politicians, they can take these risks. They should have been protesting like this against the policies that have been affecting the country, against when they are going after journalists, when they're going after people for social media posts, not essentially only when Sonia Gandhi is being asked to come for questioning. So that becomes the only cause when they rise up to this level. Then they don't have the public imagination. The people don't really feel that it's a legitimate protest. It's a protest for their own survival now. It's not a protest for the country or for the people or for their electorate or for their supporters. It's a protest only for their own leader.
So definitely, I mean, using agencies like ED and CBI against the political opponents, that is definitely an issue. But when it comes to National Herald, of course, I mean, ED and CBI, they don't have a definite line of investigation. But yes, something has gone wrong in National Herald case is quite evident. Okay, it is quite evident. And they protested when Rahul Gandhi was questioned, and now Sonia Gandhi being questioned. But the opposition parties jumping in and making ED as an issue, I mean, these agencies, that is something which I think worth protesting against.
All of you listening in, the Chhota Hafta, do subscribe so you can listen to the entire Hafta. We will see you again next week with the Hafta. Till then, subscribe, pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Thank you. Goodbye.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Sun liya Afrika, mufat khoron. Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free. All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.